Good afternoon, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Paula White here, and I'm going to be introducing our speaker today, Jamin White, who's the founder of Four Oaks Medicare Planning. Today, we're really gearing this presentation towards those in the benefits professional and profession to kind of help you guys navigate at least the basics and then some of the law changes that have happened so that you're aware of those. And then really some of the pitfalls and things to listen out for. So if somebody's talking about their HSA or somebody says they're going on COBRA, those kind of things are red flags. And so he'll want to make sure he talks to you about that as well, so that you're just kind of prepared to know when, okay, hey, it's time to kind of bring in a Medicare person at that moment. So without further ado, this is Jamin, founder of Four Oaks Medicare Planning. He actually has his law degree from the University of Texas. He is AHIP certified, which means he is able to sell all the major plans, Part D drug plans, Medicare Advantage plans, along with Medicare supplements. He's licensed independent, so really has access to all of the major carriers. And then also, it's an interesting tidbit for you guys. He has also done corporate benefits and HR at a corporate company. So he kind of understands that view as well. So with that in mind, I will pass it over to Jamin to get us started.
Thank you, Paula, and thank you for everyone that's decided to attend this webinar today. So as Paula mentioned, this is, we talk with a lot of benefits professionals, and we act as a Medicare resource as well to just answer questions that you guys get. Medicare is a complicated area and is not something that generally, you guys want to deal with. And so, this webinar today is going to be a little bit of the basics, but it's also going to go a little bit deeper into that, just some of the things, because you probably in your position have a general idea about Medicare, but I want to get into some of the pitfalls and some of the frequently asked questions that you might be encountering, and then also just some of the new information for 2023. I will save some time at the end for questions, so if I don't hit on something, don't worry. I will leave some time for us to have a conversation, and you may batter me with any questions that you have when it comes to Medicare. So the topics that we're going to talk about today essentially are, we're going to hit the basics. We're going to look at what the new premiums are and deductibles are in 2023. That's very important for employees that are getting ready to retire or are coming up on age 65. And also just some of the recent law changes due to the Inflation Reduction Act and what that means. I've had many employees that have decided to wait on Medicare because of some issues with like prescriptions, that in the future, this may change kind of their decision-making on what to do with Medicare. So we'll dive into that a little bit as well. I put the picture down below just because a lot of times this is what your employees are feeling, or if you've gotten close to 65, you might have felt like. And so we're here to be able to provide resources and information so that you don't feel like you're entering a maze as much with Medicare, because we know the employees are feeling that as well, with them getting inundated with all kinds of mail and intrusive phone calls when they're getting ready to turn 65. So just a little bit of what you might already know about Medicare. Obviously, generally if you're disabled, meet some certain conditions, or primarily when you're turning 65, you have the option to go on to Medicare. And so the first part of Medicare, it's called Original Medicare, and someone will decide either to sign up for that or not, depending upon their situation with their workplace primarily. But the way Original Medicare is designed, it's split into two parts, Part A and Part B. There's a hospital component that is Part A, that's generally considered the inpatient benefit under Original Medicare. And then there's Part B, it's called medical. It's generally the outpatient benefit. Now, it's very important to know that Medicare, when you go on it, it's not free when it comes. There are some premiums that are associated primarily with Part B. And then also it doesn't cover everything. So for example, you will have coinsurance and deductibles and things like that the Medicare beneficiary is going to have to pay for on original Medicare. Prescription drugs are not covered under A and B either. That's Part D of Medicare, and we'll look at that in a second. Dental, vision, and hearing care are not covered under original Medicare. So sometimes someone goes on to Medicare, they'll want to keep the dental and vision benefit that they have through the employer. So that includes eyeglasses, contacts, hearing aids. Medicare, just remember, is not a long-term care program. It's not going to provide long-term custodial care or nursing home care. And then finally, it's not something that is going to cover foreign travel, except under very limited circumstances. Now, the enrollment is very specific, and this is when you probably are getting most of your questions when it comes to what do I do with Medicare. If you have an employee that's approaching 65, they're going to start getting inundated with mail probably a year prior to their 65th birthday, and they might be coming to you and asking, what am I supposed to do with this? How does this impact me? Well, again, that is it depends. But they will get so much mail and they'll think of penalties and all of that, that it's just really good to know that usually means that they're coming up on their initial enrollment period. It is a 7-month window that opens up, but it's 3 months prior to your birthday month. It includes your birthday month, and then it lasts 3 months after that. So this is a window of when people that are turning 65 will enroll in original Medicare Part A and Part B. Now, if you don't enroll within this 6-month window or 7-month window, then there's other times that you can enroll. One that you guys might be familiar with is if you have someone that is retiring and they're past 65, there's a special enrollment window that opens up after that. But this is the initial window that will open up, and it opens up certain rights. And that's what, is very important for the employee to understand is when you go on to Medicare, it does have costs, but it also triggers certain rights of enrollments into like Medicare supplements, things like that, that the employee needs to know whether that's the time to do it or not. But essentially, this is the enrollment period, this 7-month window. And you'll see a lot of questions come in about Medicare from your employees or from the employers and the employees of the companies that you guys work with. Now, generally, when it comes to the open enrollment or the initial enrollment period, if you ever, in the past, if you were to enroll in the last 3 months of that 7-month window, you could have a delay in when that Part B actually goes into effect. It doesn't go in, it wouldn't have gone in right at the very next month. But just some quick little tidbit in 2023, they changed that where even if you enroll after your birthday month, that last 3 months, the Part B is going to go into effect the very next month. So there is not that large delay. I've encountered that with lots of the employees, particular that are asking, how do I time this? And that's just an important change that's happened this year. Now, this is the really important one for those employees that are working past 65, maybe getting ready to retire. However, whatever their situation is, they've delayed going on to Part B. Sometimes they've delayed going on to Part A, and I'll mention that in just a second. But essentially, this is a special enrollment period that opens up when you are enrolling in, when you're ready to go on to Medicare for the first time. So it starts pretty much the month 1 of when you're losing your employer coverage, and it goes up to 8 months in the future. So you'll see it's in 8 months to enroll in A and B. Now, generally, we would want to time it where there's no gaps in coverage. So we would usually want to just transition it right at that month 1. So usually I'm talking with people 2 to 3 months prior to that date. But essentially, this is the window of opportunity that someone has to go on to Medicare Part A and Part B during this special enrollment window. Now, it's very important. One of the major questions that I have is, well, what about COBRA insurance? Well, that is a tricky situation. COBRA is not considered active employee insurance under Medicare. So it's really important to know that that 8-month window is not extended by COBRA at all. It actually is when the employer coverage is over. If COBRA is elected and you go outside that 8-month window, then that special enrollment period closes, and that can then subject that person to potential penalties. So definitely remember, COBRA is a little bit of an exclamation mark. That usually, if there's this COBRA situation, then usually we would want to talk about that. One of the things also that's very important when you're enrolling into Medicare after you turn 65 is that your employee needs to be aware that Part A, or the employee needs to be aware that Part A can be retroactive. It's retroactive up to 6 months or back to your 65th birthday month. And so really what that means is that if someone is contributing to an HSA account, that could subject them to the penalties, because if they're continuing to do their HSA contributions and then they suddenly decide, well, I'm going to go on to A and B now, B might go into effect the date that they choose, but A is going to be retroactive up to 6 months in the past. And so generally it's always good to advise, or we advise employers or employees, or that we're talking to those individuals to make sure and stop your HSA contributions 6 months prior to when you're getting ready to go on to A and B. Again, this is after you've turned 65 and you've continued to work. There's a little bit of a shorter window to enroll in Part C and Part D plans. Those are Advantage plans or drug plans. We'll talk about that in a moment. Just know that, again, the takeaway from these charts is there's different deadlines for different things. And so we're here to help kind of navigate someone through that so that you're not caught. But there are some special enrollment windows that open up when you work past 65, which many, many people do. So back to original Medicare and what the costs are. It's just important to know how Medicare is basically structured and why people are deciding whether to stay on an employer plan or maybe to go on to Medicare. It's about cost and coverage. And so this is what we'll talk about. Original Medicare, generally for most people, for Part A, that's the inpatient type hospital benefit, doesn't cost anything as long as you've worked 10 years or paid into the system 40 quarters. It's Part A is premium free, but it's not free when you go into the hospital. So you'll see it's a $1,600 deductible. Now that deductible is not an annual deductible, it's a per benefit period deductible. So that just means that it's a window of time between hospital stays. If you're outside that window, you could be subject to that deductible again and pay it more than one time a year. And then there's, as the hospital stay gets longer, there are some additional per day costs that kick in effect. And we'll notice this with also Part B. This is a key one. There's no out-of-pocket max under A and B. And so that's another issue that comes up because, for example, you'll see it, there's a 20% under B. That can be problematic when you have something that does not have an out-of-pocket max. So the Part B is the medical part. So remember, that's generally outpatient care. So doctor visits, even like chemotherapy, things that you do on an outpatient basis. This does cost money. It's not premium free. The government sets this amount every single year. This year, Part B will cost a beneficiary $164.90 a month. Now that cost is subject to income escalations. And so we'll look at that. So it's a base level of $164.90, but it can go up. And we'll touch base on that in just a second. So there is a deductible that you pay for anything that falls under Part B. It's $226, and it is an annual deductible. So you only have to fill that one time. And then you'll notice that you pay 20% of the costs that fall under B. So it's an 80-20 split. The government pays 80%, and then the Medicare beneficiary is going to pay 20%. But again, there's no out-of-pocket max. And so that 20% could be 20% of 5,000 or 500,000. There's nothing that ever stops that. And that's why the Medicare programs have additional things to help deal with these risks. Something, just a quick little thing, there is a new type of Part B. It's really just for those that have end-stage renal disease and they're about to lose their coverage after 36 months of a kidney transplant. Anyway, it just allows them to continue to have immunosuppressive drug coverage under a special Part B if they don't otherwise qualify for Medicare. So again, this hits a very small portion, but it's just something that's new for this year. So we talked about that Part B can be more expensive. And so if someone that is still working, this definitely can be an issue. So Part B is always subject to income surcharges. And what that means is the higher the employee's income, that the Part B can also go higher. So that you'll notice that there's a couple of things that are probably a little peculiar as you look at the top of the chart. It says if your income was in 2021 was one of these, you pay in 2023 this. It's a look back period. So the government is essentially looking back 2 years prior to the current year to find out where this person is going to fit and how much they're going to pay for Part B. So you'll notice, so they'll take the tax return, whether it's an individual or a joint. It's however they file as a household. And you'll notice that as you go up in income, you'll hit new brackets. And so for Part B, you'll see that if you're a single filer and it's above 97,000, this is modified adjusted gross income, that the Part B premium can increase. Again, this is about the cost and coverage, what an employee is going to try to decide to do with their Medicare, depending upon how much they're paying for their employee insurance. This is significant because if they earn quite a bit higher, obviously they're jumping from 164.90 to as high as 560. So that definitely impacts lots of people. I will tell you that many owners this impacts as well, because obviously owners have to deal with two different parts of the equation. One, they're dealing with how much they're going to pay for their Medicare in general, but then also how much does it cost them to be on their own plan as they get older. Obviously, you guys know censuses are impacted by that. But obviously, owners a lot of times can be hit by this, this surcharge under Part B. So just note that 164.90 is that base level, and it can go up as the income goes up and 2 years back. Now, there is a form, if there's someone where the income 2 years ago is not reflective, maybe they retired or lowered their work hours, there is a special form that I have, and I can send that if you ever need it to appeal the surcharge as it's applied based on a life-changing circumstance. So Part D, if you remember when we talked about what's not covered under original Medicare, Part D, prescription drugs aren't. Now, this is a really, really important part of the program that does impact a lot of people's decisions on whether to stay on an employer plan, if they're not retiring, or if they're coming off of an employer plan because they're retiring. The prescription drug plan under Medicare is very different than what you're used to under regular insurance. Now, I know different insurance products vary nowadays, but a lot of times people are used to paying just a straight copay for their medications, whether it's generics or maybe more expensive specialty medications. Under commercial insurance, a lot of times there's a lot better, just straight copays, things that it doesn't make it extremely expensive, and it's very predictable over the year. That's not the case under a Part D prescription plans. Congress decided to make this really, really confusing, but they have implemented some legislation to help that. But what I really want to give you as a takeaway here is Part D drug plans or medications that the employee takes definitely can impact their decision on whether to go on to Medicare if they're still working, or what it's going to look like when they're coming off of the employer plan, whether retiring or, just separating from employment. So again, these are very specific to the individual needs of the person. And so essentially what I want you to take from this is the amount that you pay for a particular medication can change over the year that they're being covered. And that's what this little graph is showing, is there's actually 4 different phases. And depending upon the type of medication someone takes, will take you through maybe none of the phases or all of the phases. Something that for higher income earners, again, Part B, we talked about. This chart may look very familiar, and it should, except it has Part D instead of Part B. So this just means that Part D plans can also be surcharged depending upon income. That look back period is the same of 2 years. And then you'll just notice that here it's a plan premium. So many times the Part D plans have a separate premium, and then the government is surcharging on top of that. So that's why there's an amount plus the plan premium, whichever that is that the employee or the beneficiary is deciding to go on. So essentially, what's important to know about how Medicare works is you notice that original Medicare, remember I said there's no out-of-pocket maximum. So there's some really big problems with just original Medicare. And that's why you might have, as you see things on the television even, or you have employees that are asking, about Medicare and what are my options? What does this look like? Generally, you're going to pick one of 2 options, or the employee is going to pick one of 2 options if they decide to go on to Medicare as their primary insurance. So both of them require you to be on Part A and Part B. So that at first slide about original Medicare, you're going to have to go on to that, and that makes them eligible for the one of 2 options that they can pick. So first, you can pick what's called a Medicare supplement plan. Or you can pick the second option, is what's called a Medicare Advantage plan. It's actually Part C. Now, a Medicare supplement plan is very unique. All of those gaps that I talked about, like the 20% under Part B, the deductible of $1,600 under Part A, a supplement really is designed to come in there and pay almost all of it on behalf of the employer, the beneficiary. And what that means is it's very unique that under medical and hospital, under A and B, there is a way that you can get almost 100% coverage under Medicare. One of the most popular plans is one that covers all of the gaps in A and B except for one, and that's the Part B deductible, which is just $226. So it's really, in terms of, if you're, we all are used to health insurance, it's a $226 deductible. After that, for hospital and medical, the person's coverage is 100%. So it's very, very comprehensive and very flexible. There's no PPOs, no HMOs. You go wherever Medicare is accepted. So many people really love this option. You can get into any of these supplements. They're all standardized by the government, but the private companies offer them. But you can get, when you're going on to Part B or Medicare for the first time, you can get one without answering any health questions. You can't be denied for any reason. Later on, the person could be subject to health questions to get one. So it's just, again, important to know that the rules and when the deadlines and things are for those. Under the supplement, it only covers things under A and B. So that's why you see we would add a Part D drug plan to that. The other option is more like the employer plan. These plans are regulated by the government, but essentially they're all in one plans. And so these are plans where it's more of a pay as you go. So a lot of them don't have deductibles on them. So they're very, very good, but they'll bundle everything together, like your A and your B. They'll bundle in the Part D, the prescriptions, and also give like dental, vision. This is a way you can get dental and vision under Medicare, whereas under the supplement side, it's only supplement A and B. So dental and vision has to be taken from somewhere else. And so these plans are network-based plans. So again, PPOs, HMOs, all the terminology you guys are familiar with, but they're very, very good plans. The reason why Part C plans are popular is because many of them don't have an additional premium. So the person pays their Part B premium, but then they don't have to pay anything additional. Usually for many of these plans, they're called $0 premium plans. The supplements, on the other hand, that first option, there is an additional monthly premium for those. So again, it's about cost and coverage and weighing it. And so a lot of times it's very important as someone is approaching Medicare and deciding what to do with their insurance. Many times we'll go through both of these options, kind of just boil them down to some good options. And then we have the third option. Maybe it is staying on the employer plan, and figuring out what is the right next step for the person that's approaching Medicare. So I'm not going to go through this slide very quickly. There's a lot of words on it, but again, you'll notice on the left-hand side, and I'll make these slides available if you would like them. It's just about cost and coverage. The Medicare supplement, I call it a buy up usually. You're buying up to get almost 100% coverage. So it's a little costlier, but it's more comprehensive. On the Advantage side, you can save monthly by not having a premium, but you'll pay as you go through co-pays and co-insurance, things like that, and get the extra benefits too. So one of the things that I wanted to mention that I mentioned a little bit earlier is something called the Inflation Reduction Act. Now, this is actually going to be a game changer for many people. I have many people that are staying employed just because of prescription drug expenses. And so this is going to change some people's minds as this act and the provisions of the act phase in. But as you remember under Part D, there's a lot of different phasing that's going on when it comes to what you pay for a certain medication. The third phase on that chart was called the donut hole. That really means that that person is paying 25% co-insurance on a medication. And then if they even go into the next stage, the last one is called catastrophic, they're paying 5%. Now, if you think of some of the medications that are out there, they're very expensive. 25%, even 5% in that catastrophic phase is very, very expensive. So the government is starting to deal with these issues. And so when it comes to 2023, they've started a little light, but then they're phasing coverage, different coverage provisions in over time. But just for 2023, they've actually limited the cost of insulins to $35. Used to, those were very expensive and subject to all phases. Now they basically capped it at $35 per month for a supply of insulin. This is not for non-insulin diabetes medications, it's just for insulin. And so that's something that's helping a lot of people. The other thing is, for the first time, Medicare is going to be allowed to start negotiating drug prices, but they are really slowly implementing this in. Starting this year, they're picking 10 drugs and they're going to negotiate drug prices with the pharmaceutical companies. I think they implement those prices in like 2026. Then next year they do another set and then implement it in 2027. So those are things, again, that are going to slowly start being implemented over time. Now, these are just for 2023. In 2024, they're actually going to get rid of the catastrophic phase. That's that 5% coinsurance. So for a medication that's really expensive, after you work through the phases, that 5% goes away. That's going to be a huge benefit. And then in 2025, they're going to put an out-of-pocket max on drug plans at $2,000. Again, that is very, very significant. And so that is going, just some legislation that is working its way through being implemented and phased in over the next, 3, 4, 5 years. But it's going to start impacting people, particularly next year and beyond. And so just keep that in mind. And obviously, as things start to phase in more, that's going to draw more questions, and we'll have other webinars and things. You'll sleep many nights before 2024 comes in. So we'll obviously be revisiting all of these phase-in approaches over time. I know that was a lot. And I try to keep these webinars down to half an hour or so, I want to leave time for questions. But the main thing I want you to know is we are always happy to be a resource for not only you, but also your employers and any of the employees. We put together, just on the right-hand side, you'll just notice we have a pocket guide that we create each year for employers, for also employees. We have a survival guide, just something that you can pull out and just get some quick information if you don't want to call or email me. But obviously, I want you to feel free to take down my information. You can always give me an email or a call. Just let me know how I can help answer questions that maybe I didn't address here or specific to a particular person or an employer has. We're here to be a resource for you all so that you don't have to become the Medicare experts, because I know you have enough on your plate. So with that said, I would like to open up for any questions anybody has that has to do with anything we've discussed today, or any other Medicare questions that maybe have popped up in the last few months that you would like an answer to. So I see here, Carla put in the chat, once the Part B premium is determined, does it ever change or change yearly? So obviously there's two ways that it can change. I mean, one is it's subject to the income surcharge chart. Remember, every year that moves up. So if someone's going on to Part B in 2023, they're going to look at 2021. And then in 2024, they're going to look at 2022 and so on. So the Part B premium will change over time if you have someone that's bouncing in between those levels. The other thing is yes, the premium, the base level premium does change. To this year, it's $164.90. Last year, it was $170.10. The previous year, it was $148.50. So it can bounce around a little bit. It doesn't change a ton, the base level premium, just because it's Congress, and when they change things, if they change it too much, it's people's lives. Many people are on fixed incomes, and so it can change. So those are the ways that the Part B premiums are determined. The base level changes, and then also the income changes. Any other questions anyone has? Like I said, we'll definitely have the ability to send this out if you'd like. And if, let's see. Oh, you're so welcome. I got to thank you. So. Okay, well, if you don't have any other questions, feel free. If anything comes up, let me know, and I'll hand it back over to Paula.
Yeah, thanks so much, guys, for joining today. Good to see these names on here. And yeah, we're going to try to do these webinars once a month. During, obviously, the busy months, we probably will not do it during the summer, but for sure, we're going to have a basics one next month. So we kind of do a specialized one, and then a basics, and then the specialized one and the basics. And so next month will be a basics. So keep an eye out for that. And then you can pass that along to employers or groups that might benefit from that. We also do, what would you call it? Like special type of webinars for companies. We do them all the time. So if there's a kind of like, we're doing one for a bank, coming up. So anybody who has like more senior employers sometimes, or employees, sometimes they'll want to have like their own webinar, and so we're happy to host those if that's helpful. So I think that just about wraps it up. Please contact me or Jamin if you have any other questions.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.